And before we're speaking about the next world, I wanted to speak, like I said, a little bit more of I don't know if the word is proofs, but just understanding how it must be that there is a next world, and how we see in this world that there's a next world. And I just want to expand a little bit more on that, and then maybe even today I'll see if we're able to start getting into the details of Gehinom. Okay? So here we go. Ready? Last time we basically spoke out the idea that we know that there's a neshama nitzchi. We have a neshama, a soul which lasts forever, and that itself is a reason why things are always forever. Okay, we are made up of a neshama, a ruach, and a nefesh. Neshama is ki'ilu, a part of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's an extension of Hashem, but it's not Him. Just like the rays of a sun has rays, but we all know it's not the sun, but it's an extension of the sun. So too, the neshama ki'ilu is an extension of Hashem in a sort of type of way. Chas Hashem to say it as any type of part of Hashem. But that is our neshama that we have, and that's what goes up to Shemayim. Then we have the nefesh, which even animals have. An animal also has a nefesh, which is the breath of life that we have. That is the me. When we speak about the I of a person, the word nefesh, some people say is nofesh. Nofesh is a vacation. But the idea is a relaxation. Just like when you feel a certain awe, or when you see something, a nice sight, or when you feel, something thing, there's a certain nofesh, it's a nefesh, a relaxation to the nefesh. That's where it comes from. Now, ruach is the in-between the nefesh and the neshama. The ruach, which is in between the nefesh and the neshama, that is something that sways back and forth. As we all know, ruach, which is wind, literally, is something that sways back and forth. That is the nekuda that separates between all people. The point of ruach is the point of free choice. That is between going to the nefesh, which is the chelik behemishali, my animalistic drives, as opposed to the neshama, which are more my spiritual drives. Some people are more this way, and some people are more that way. And it's like some of us, like most of us, are a little bit more on both sides of the fence, right? We go back and forth, and it sways back and forth. Within an hour, you could be on one side of the fence, and another hour, you could be on the other side of the fence. You can keep moving back and forth. That's the koach of the ruach. Just like a ruach sways things, it sways other things also. So that's how also we can go. That's why when a person is niftar, we mentioned the nefesh, which is relevant for what we speak about. The nefesh stays by the body. The lower part stays by the body, but the neshama and the ruach goes upstairs. Now we said there's different parts of the nefesh which we're not getting into. A higher nefesh goes up and the lower nefesh stays down. But al kopanim, that's the main idea. That's why we light a candle for one who is niftar, because it goes up. And just like we say the candle goes up, which is a representation of the ruach, because it's what's it called, flickers. A candle flickers, so to the ruach flickers. The ruach flickers the light. So too, our ruach is going up when a person is niftar. So such a person is going up. Okay. We also say tehillim by a dead person because we know that he's still around. We believe that he still has some existence. He has still some connection here. Okay. He's still there, and that's why there's this idea of the ruach. Okay. And we also do a tahara. We also purify the body because we know that the body has a certain amount of kedusha to it, which I'm going to speak about in a minute, which still has some existence of a nefesh within it, and therefore that's what it is. But that's the idea of death which we're speaking about. And this thing is why we hold that it still lasts forever. Okay, we know that the nefesh is not something that disappears; it's something that's there forever, which means that every ma'aseh, every action that we do, is here to stay. There's nowhere to run, and therefore we have an opportunity to use it to do fantastic things or to do horrible things. That's our opportunity to be able to decide which way you want to go. Okay, and that's all based, like I said, on the ruach. And that's what we mentioned in the end of the last year, by the way, also, Tumat HaMet. There's the idea of a met becoming tameh, because he has this potential, this ruach that's within him is a fantastic thing. This ruach, this spirit that is in between the neshama and the nefesh, that's somewhere in between, this flowing wind, which has opportunity to go here and here, that's a fantastic present, a matana, that Hashem gave us to be able to utilize. And when he's dead, it's all over, and he's completely tameh. He becomes spiritually impure because he has lost an opportunity that could have been utilized oh so well. Okay, that's basically this important nakuda. That's what we're mentioning last time. On a similar note, and there's some continuing. Okay, we also mentioned the idea that that's why a person, and I'm expanding on this a little bit, that's why a person has an instinct to stay alive. We know there's an idea of inertia in the world anyways. Inertia means that people want to stay consistent to whatever it is. A body always stays in the same frame of motion as it always is. That's why a person flies through a window when you hit on the brakes, right? But even so, the body always doesn't, it's very difficult to commit suicide, and a person doesn't want to die, and it's always negative that, because intrinsically a person knows that he wants to be Kayam, he wants to be alive, he wants to have this feeling of life, to live forever. A person never wants to have a feeling of death. A person wants a feeling of death, which is a strong proof against atheism. And a lot of these things are a strong proof against atheism in many type of ways, because a lot of these things can't make sense of something just, without all the problems of how it started in the first place, and how a bunch of explosions, which usually should cause entropy, which is a destruction, causes construction, which is itself a problem with atheism in general, or the whole Big Bang. But we'll leave those small points aside. There's a bigger point here, at least, where even if it creates something, it creates a table, it'll create this room, it'll create this. How can it create something which has a thought process, a conscience, which is very unusual? I one time heard, someone showed me a few things, that they're trying, one of the big chakirot, one of the big introspections, which the scientists tried to figure out, is how there's an idea that we call conscience. The fact that I can think that I'm thinking. The fact that I have a conscience, that I can physically think about my conscience right now, and can, we can build computers as much as we want, but a computer can never independently think on its own, as much as it could independently think. It can't think about the fact that it's thinking, or be, let's say, philosophical and try to figure, I think, therefore I am, or any of these types of physicals of why do I exist, or do I exist. All these types of abstract types of way of thinking cannot be created by a bunch of explosions. You understand? It can't even happen. And they speak about over there that it must be that there's more than 4 dimensions. We've spoken, and we spoke out last time, that there's 4 dimensions: height, length, width, and time. Time, of course, we know, was about 89 years ago, was a discovery that time itself is a separate dimension, because it can be alternated, it can be changed. So time itself is a 4th dimension. But not that I understood every word. I have the recording. Anyone who wants to hear it, it's about a 15-minute recording. It won't take too much of the shir, so I didn't want to play it. I thought to play it, but it'll take too much of the shir. If anyone wants to hear it, his name is David Chalmers, or whatever his name. Okay? I like his first name at least. And anyways, over there, he says that there are a number of dimensions that science has proved that there must be more. We haven't been able to discover all of them, but what I found most interesting about it is he said that there's approximately 10 to 11 dimensions. That's his words. So the guy who was asking said to him, how do you know 10 to 11? Maybe there's 13, maybe 14. He said, no, it can't be, because then it would expand the world too much, and it would be too abstract and obscure, and it wouldn't be able to be in content. So he said it must be that there are 10 to 11 dimensions. And he mentions, and it's similar to the idea that when you look in the water and you see a fish, and a fish is swimming in the water, the fish think that's it. Everything that's in here, there's the water, there's me, there's no one else, and there's this other fish that I want to eat. That's basically what there is. He doesn't think there's more. And here you are, you're looking on top of it. This is what he says. He says you're looking on top of it, and you see everything, and you see that there's a whole different dimension. There's a whole realm of life. There's a different dimension of life that exists. What?
That's outside the water.
That's outside of the water. That exists outside. And he was saying, also here, there's obviously many dimensions that we're not familiar with that seem to exist even outside, ki'ilu, outside of the universe. Even though we can never get out of the universe, it's physically impossible to leave the universe. But even so, there's something apparently above or beyond in the other, maybe it's beyond galaxies or mountains. I'll tell you the truth, I understood what he said about 50%, not 100%, and I told you I'll play you the recording if you want. Is there anything, huh? No, he's actually American. Why? Could be. I wouldn't be surprised.
I saw a Chinese guy say the same thing.
Really?
Expert in
Chinese copy everything.
Spoken to like a guy who has a company that's software. You sound resentful. What did you say? Yeah, you said that they said a similar thing about the.
Yeah, Americans trying to it exists right here now, multiple dimensions.
Multiple dimensions. That's what he was saying. Yeah.
We don't have the senses to.
The guy gave me 2 or 3 recordings, but this was the best one.
Maybe that's part of the philosophy as well.
And it's also part of it. Could be. But I'm just saying, you see that they agree that there is another dimension. There's something beyond life.
Yeah.
There seems to be something that even in science they've seen, just like we discovered a 4th dimension of time, there seems to be something over and beyond other dimensions, and we can't see it, just like when you look down at these fish. And that's what he seems to say. I just felt this is my own addition, if you don't mind, and you can agree with me or not. But he said, he says, according to their estimations, according to their calculations, there has to be approximately 10 or 11 dimensions. I found that fascinating. No, because again, I don't know why 10 or 11 is opposed to 13. The guy did, and what about 13? He said if it's 13, then the universe will be too expanded into something it won't work out mathematically. I don't know why. But I want to point out, but it's interesting because we believe and we know already how many Sfirot was the world created with?
10.
Now 10, but you should know it's 10 or 11. It is 10 or 11. Why do we say it's 10 or 11? And you can look at the books, it's all like this, because there's an extra Sphira which is interchanged. There's two that is interchanged. Okay, well obviously I'm not going to get into this, not like I know what I'm talking about. But B'ikaron, you should know there is such an idea of 10, because there's 3 here, Chochmah Bina Dat, there's Chesed Gvur Tiferet, and there's Netzach Hod Yesod, that's 9. And on each end there's 1. There's Keter on top. Now Keter is a Sphira over and beyond the person, just like a crown is not part of the person, but it's an extension of the person, which represents the other end, and the other end of the boat is Malchut. Malchut is kingship, which is not Keter is more Zachar, and Malchut is more Nekeva. But these are like 2 extras that are to the 9. You have these 9 and you have these 10. Keter and Dat, the Chochmah Bina Dat, which are interchangeable. In different frameworks, it depends on how you do it, it depends on which scenario you have. You have to speak to the Arizal, he'll help you out with all these details. Okay? But that's what comes out. So I thought it was fantastic when he said, or 10 or 11. I was like, whoa, wow, that's really impressive. Because we also hold there's 10 or 11 Sfirot. It all depends on how you count them up. It all depends. Now, does that mean what he said is Torah Misin? I know, but I think it works out very nice. It works out pretty well. That it seems to be there's that many dimensions in the world based on this idea. So like I said, and like I've said from the beginning of this year in general, that all the things that we've already written about and has been written already from 2,000 years ago, and especially in Kabbalah and the Zohar and things like that, slowly but surely is all being proven by scientists, because then we listen to. The other ones no one listens to. Anyway, so that's this idea. But at least we see from here that there's obviously some type of dimension over and beyond, and that's where this idea comes from, that when a person is here, he wants to stay. There's always an interest in living forever. And like I mentioned last time, someone wants a street name, but even someone that's an atheist, it's such a funny thing, like Lenin, right? Lenin has a monument which he was commanded them to make a monument of me afterwards, because he was a chashuv person. Why shouldn't they, right? I think he was Jewish, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Not John Lennon, not the Beatles. No, that's his name. The guy, the communist.
Oh, Leningrad.
Leningrad, sorry. Leningrad, yeah. Right, he was major Russia. Leningrad is a city or his name? I thought his name. Not Trotsky.
Leningrad.
No.
Yeah, you fell in there.
Was the Russia?
He was
a Jewish.
Oh, he was. No, I know a few of them were Jewish. A few of these big communists were Jewish, and they were massive killers. But what was his name? Lenin or Lex? Vladimir Lenin. Lenin, right? I think it was Lenin, right?
Yes,
Lenin was his last name, and they named Leningrad after him. But he was a horrible person, also and he was a sworn atheist from here till tomorrow, etc. But he was so interested in a monument to be set up in his name. Why? You're just a piece of dirt that's falling away and passing through the dust in the wind, right? Why do you have to be so makpid about this type of things? Because he still wants some type of continuation for something that we're like
North Korea.
A person always wants, apparently, some type of life to his neshama, to live forever. That's what I'm trying to point out. Even from they always want to have some type of remembrance with the name. They're willing to start some type of movement, some fantastic theorem, or some type of save the whales, or some type of thing that they can go to be able to do something, a big thing against pollution, or saving the ozone layer, in order that your name is there. Everything that they do in their name, they all stample their name all over it, so everybody knows about their fantastic discovery. You understand? So the word nitzchi, that's what I'm saying. A person has teva, a natural need for nitzchi, for eternity. I want eternity. Even if I'm a sworn atheist, even if I don't believe in anything, a person still intrinsically seems to want to have that type of forever. Okay, that foreverness, which of course we know is never going to happen, because everybody's forgotten and replaced in no matter of no time. If everything you care about is this world, then you're wasting your time basically, because you don't have to. There's a sheet in the Yerushalmi, it says not to put a matzeva. He says not to put a lo ma'amidim al tzadikim matzevot. You don't put a gravestone on top of the tzaddikim. Why? Because their maisim are their remembrance. They don't need anything else. The action that they have, that itself is their zecher. That itself is their zecher, and they don't need a monument. They don't need some external remembrance of everything they did, because the maisim they did, the actions that they did, are there. But from here we see this important idea that things are internally there to last forever. And with this, I want to mention one other important. Okay, you know what? Yeah. Okay, that's it. On a similar note, just to prove that idea, also. And I don't think I mentioned this last week. If I did, please remind me. I didn't speak about the law of conservation last week, right? I didn't mention that, right?
No.
No? Okay. I did mention it or not?
No, you did not.
I think so.
About. You tell me if I did, because I have. Even if I did, I have more to say about it. But there's an idea in general that energy never gets lost.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I did mention that. Okay. Okay. So I just want to add a couple small things, just pointing to that. Okay. So there's energy never gets lost, and that means that just like. No, I don't want to say it again. Just like physical energy doesn't ever disappear, so too it just gets transferred into different forms. By the way, do you realize that? I just forgot to mention it last time probably, but if you light a candle inside of a beaker, and the candle has a certain weight, and you close it and it's has enough oxygen for the candle to light, even after the candle completely disappears, the beaker or the container that's holding the candle will weigh the same exact thing before and afterwards. Even though before it had a candle inside and now it doesn't have a candle inside. How can it be? Before it had a candle and now it doesn't have a candle, and it will weigh exactly the same thing. The answer is...
So the vacuum means that the energy can't...
Well, if it's a proper vacuum, it can't light. Right? So you have to have some oxygen. But how does that happen? Because the wax that disappears, which we saw as a candle, turns into a certain gaseous hydrogen, right? A carbon dioxide hydrogen that is developed, right? It takes in oxygen and sucks out that. Which means nothing gets wasted. Nothing disappears. It only gets transferred. So we see a candle, we don't see a candle. We say, oh, it's not here anymore. That's not true. It just got transformed into a different type of energy. And just like all these types of energies are able to be transferred into different types of things, so that's all I was trying to mention. This is the same exact thing. The neshama also, every action that you do with, just like your physical body never gets wasted, it decomposes. And that's what happens to it. So to the neshama, every action that it does never goes to waste. Okay? And that's what it says in the pasuk, Mi tzera arim ve'oseh aruchot yamer la'adam masicho. Kadosh Baruch Hu will echo every little thing that you ever done. As we all know, nothing will be forgotten. Every little thing will be accounted for. Okay? Every little thing will end up being accounted for and will be taken care of. Okay? That's this idea. Okay. There's a Maisa with the wife of the Vilna Gaon. The wife of the Vilna Gaon, it's a famous Maisa that's brought down in many, many places that I'm usually surprised to hear, but she actually had a good friend that they would collect money for poor people. They would collect money for poor people. And that was their job. And one time, when her friend was on her deathbed, they made a deal or whatever. She said to her, when you're upstairs in Shamayim, please come back and tell me what's going on up there. I'm interested to hear. Talking about the wife of the Vilna Gaon. I guess you could do these types of things. You know what I'm saying? The wife of the Vilna Gaon told this friend of hers, this lady, which was a friend of hers who was about to die. She was on her deathbed. Come tell her, and I'll give you a little time up there, and finish your asakim there, finish what you have to do. But then come down and tell me what's going on up there. I'm curious to know what's going on. Kitzer, she came down after a few months or whatever, a certain amount of months, and told her, I'll tell you the truth, I'm not allowed to tell you all the details of what's going on over here, and all the different things are in it, but I can tell you one thing. Do you remember that time, one time we were walking on the street, some people know the story, it's a famous story. Do you remember that time when we were walking on the street and we saw a certain wealthy person across the street? And I pointed out to you, said, oh, there's so-and-so, well, we should go and we should try to collect from him for what. She said, just for that pointing of my finger, you wouldn't believe how much schar I'm getting right now. Just for that pointing my finger to point out, to be able to go, to point out to that gvir, that wealthy person, to be able to go collect for the poor people. Besides all the other things, I mean, besides the fact of telling the wife of the Vilna Gaon, I don't think she has much to worry about. But anyways, at the same time, just pointing out that finger, to be able to point out, to be able to get from that person. So whoever wants to go collecting, I have our address and email, and we can we'll take them out. We'll talk about it after the shir. Seder B'al Kapanim, you see the incredible amount of schar that you get. And the Mechtam Eliyahu says, if you would take all the generations, if you would take all the enjoyment you've ever had in your whole life and put it into an encapsulated little beaker, a little circle, and you would take all from your whole and all the generation that's around you and put it all into this little cup over here, and then you would say, and you take from all 6,000 years of all the enjoyments and the hanaot and everything that you can, you would still not be able to reach the amount of hana you get from karat ruach shel sha'ah achad be'olam haba, from a little bit of olam haba. It all doesn't equal that little bit of enjoyment that one gets, even in that mitzvah time of Olam HaBah. Okay, but that's something to pay attention to. Okay, that's something to pay attention to, and that's this idea that we're coming for. On a similar note, when we're speaking about learning about death or the fact that there's another world and what happens afterwards, etc., Avraham Avinu, he asked for. Avraham Avinu made a request, an interesting request. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov all made an interesting request. Avraham bikesh zikna. The Midrash says that Avraham Avinu asked that one should become old. Why? Before he asked for that, everybody looked the same. Everybody looked nice and young, nothing, and you never knew the difference who to be mechabed, one or the other. That's what he said. That's one reason why. But there's a little bit more to it. He asked for it because when a person is old, you learn that your days are numbered, buddy. Okay? Every white hair that one develops is what we call a hazman and beitin shalmala. Beit Din is inviting you to come upstairs every next white hair they have. When the wrinkles start kicking in, we all start knowing that your skin cells are not reproducing themselves anymore. That's why things are looking different. You don't look as nice of a whippersnapper as you used to be when you were a good-looking 20-year-old. You understand? And you start realizing, oh boy, I see that I don't have so much more to do. When you start, every time you start, right, throwing a little of your arm, oops, right, or one of these, right, and then you're out for about 3 days. Then you start realizing that maybe this world is not so forever. So Avraham Avinu asked for a little bit of zikna, a little bit of age, in order to be able to remind us of the things we're speaking about now. That there is, this world is temporary, and you have to know there is a next world. And it's incredible, even though that's a fact and you can't run away from it, there's a world war against this idea. The Western world is fighting tooth and nail to be able to avoid any types of things, right? To be able to Botox, there are hormones left and right that a person can take in order to do that. They always color their hair. Everyone, by us it's an issur to color our white hairs, but for them, they go ahead and try to color their white hairs to remind them, make them friends. They'll go facelifts. The people with the money will do operations in order to be able to make sure that they still look young, slick back my hair to make myself look very cool. Always trying to run away from this something that we call zikna, which is a matana. It's a present. It's a present to remind us that things are not here forever. Some of you might know, I always remember when I was in Los Angeles a number of years ago that I pulled up to a red light. Some people, I said in the Mitzvah Sharm I never said it here, I think. Do you remember me saying this? I don't remember. Okay, when I pulled up to a red light, I was in Los Angeles, I have to point it out, not here. Yeah, and when I was there, I saw this incredibly fancy car. You know, there's a number of them. There's a Ferrari or a Testarossa, whatever it was. One of them that pulled up next to me, right? And a very thin, very slick kind of, they kind of like pull up to the, revving the engine, this and that. And I couldn't help but notice who was behind the wheel, the steering wheel. There was a guy who had more wrinkles than a prune. I'm telling you, the guy was at least in his 90s, maybe in the upper 90s. I couldn't believe it. He mamish, like, his face was all in. He had a few leftover hairs somewhere, a few little white gray hairs, but they were so slicked back with so much grease, I couldn't believe it. He used the whole bottle in those 3 or 4 hairs that he had. It was such a sight to see this guy. I was so taken aback by it. I said, oh right, I'm in Los Angeles, I forgot. You understand? It was incredible to see how this person was so running away from getting old. I'm still young. Who was in the passenger? There's a sheer, I'm not allowed to talk about that. Who was in the passenger seat? He was so busy trying to make himself look like he was willing to spend all the money, I don't know what his financial status, to make himself in that car and the way to look and just to be able to keep it. I'm 100% positive he's dead right now. I have no question because this story took place about 10 years ago or so. The story lives on. And the story lives on, right? That was the whole purpose of being alive, by the way, just so you know, for the story. Right? And it's just incredible how they're waging this war, which Avraham Avinu requested, to be able to make sure, no, I don't become old, because they're afraid of this musar that we're trying to learn, that we're trying to learn.
And is it for men? Is it an issur for women to come?
No, it's not an issur for women. No, they're allowed to, yeah. The issur for men is because it's the derech of Menashe. But they're allowed to for sure.
But conversely, there's nothing wrong in an elderly person trying to feel young.
That's right.
If they give in,
as long as you're not trying to run away.
They give into their zikna.
A grandfather is someone who doesn't have to play basketball necessarily with his kids, but to do something with the decorum.
If somebody retires,
and to be good,
they die quicker because they're not.
Right, that's right. To be active in this or whatever. By us, Baruch Hashem, we have learning Torah. You have something, you have a reason to retire. You get more time to be spending with doing the right things. But you're right, 100%.
But you could be in a movie star with the makeup on.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, there's a couple more quick ones. Yitzchak was mevakesh. He asked for Yisurim, for pain. You asked for pain. How could you ask for pain? But the answer is for the same reason, because he wanted it to people to remind us that we're temporary here. We're not here forever. Even though I'm a chashav person, right? I still don't have it. And we know the world's surrounded by painkiller narcotics in order to avoid these types of things, which is fine. But it's there to make us forget that we are temporary, that we are only small. And Yaakov Avinu asked for, before a person dies, that it shouldn't happen immediately. It should take time. It shouldn't always happen immediately. He asked that it should take a certain amount of time in order that you could be chozer b'tshuva, in order that you're able to have time before one passes away, in order that you can be chozer b'tshuva, pass away his debts, get rid of them, you can take care of certain things and say Shema Yisrael, in order to Shema Yisrael, to make a Kabbalah Tshuva, a proper Kabbalah Tshuva, and that's why he requested for such a thing. Saying Shema Yisrael is an incredible thing, because you're Mekabel Ol Malchut Shamayim. That's what we've mentioned a couple of times. And that's why it's so chashuv. I'll mention quickly a story, which I remember. It's going to sound like a surprising story, but I heard the recording. A person who was working in Machon Alev here. I know his father. When I was a bacher, I was friends with the child, with his son. We were both 20, whatever it was. And he played me a recording of his peer, who was also teaching in Machon Alev. He was like a rabbi who also taught. He was a very high level thing. And this person was telling him an individual story, and I say that on purpose because he wasn't coming to make it mafoursam, to make it popular, but he made a secret recording, which I don't know if he was allowed to do that, but it's okay, I still listen to it, because he remembered his previous Gilgul. You like that one? He remembered his previous reincarnation. He remembered very clearly that he's a reincarnation of his grandmother, which you should know is a machloket, if you can be a reincarnation of a woman or a man. We'll leave that for right now. But he remembered that he was a reincarnation of his grandmother, and she was in Auschwitz. And he remembers, and he said in detail, and I heard the recording. I would love to get a whole this recording. Yeah, he could be, he's crazy. It could be, but it didn't sound like it. He was crying, and he was being very serious. And he said he didn't remember for a while, then suddenly, slowly came back to him in this, And he was saying in detail what was going on in the gas chamber, when he was in the gas chamber and this. And he also says he remembers very clearly that since he was upset at Hashem, or his grandmother was upset at Hashem, that because he was upset, she didn't say Shema Yisrael. Some people did. He remembers clearly that some people said Shema Yisrael, but he himself did not, or she herself did not say that, and that's why she had to come back as a Gilgul. That's why she had to end up having to come back as a Gilgul, because she didn't get the proper kapara. You get a certain kapara, whatever the kapara is, of course, because you died al Kiddush Hashem, but she didn't get a full kapara because she didn't say Shema Yisrael. If she did, it would have been a full kapara for the neshama, and because she didn't say it, that's why it didn't come back. So you just see the chashivut of trying to get someone to say Shema Yisrael before it happens. Okay? Now when we speak about Gilgulim, maybe we'll speak more in detail about that story.
People died immediately through sneezing
Right, that's right. You would sneeze, and then that's why we say bless you, right? That's where it comes from, labriut. That's what they should feel healthy. You should feel healthy. One time saw Pidgam, a thing, a husband and a wife were fighting and this, and then the husband sneezed, and she said, bless you. She said, don't tell me what to do. Just to show, it's trying to show how fights can get so added. Anyways, let me just finish with this keta, and then we'll finish this section at least, with one last point, which is also connected to everything we said, which is the point of this, basically on everything we said, that since the nefesh is still part of the body, we hold very much that there is a kavod amet. You need to be very makpid, very specific on the kavod of the met, of honoring the dead. Okay, we are very makpid and taking care of them in a very way. We do a tahara, we purify them, even though they're going to decompose within a few weeks, the whole body probably won't be there, we still are very makpid to make them look better. And the expression I one time heard is they look better than they've ever looked in 80 years, right? When they finish with them with the tahara, a lot of times they look very good, they clean them up and they put water, it's not an easy job. But there's a very strong kavod amet that we always do. When chas v'shalom, if a person is in a pigua, in a pigua, an attack, a terrorist attack, Right? We're very specific. It's a lot of work to collect all the blood. They're very collect all the blood. Any blood that came out while he's alive, one doesn't have to clean up, but whatever came out after he's dead needs to be cleaned up. That's all. That blood is kadosh. It has a certain kedusha. Needs to be buried also. And if you ever see, they work very hard. The Mada people, not the Mada, the Zaka people. They work very hard to make sure to baby wipe and get every little piece of drop of blood, because it's all there and it all comes from kedusha temet. And the question is why? Why is there such a kedusha? And this is one of the things the Nazis, they did on purpose, the Nazis. They dafka did not want to give chashivut, importance to the dead. And that's why they were throwing them or burning their bodies, etc. They were trying to make sure. I don't know if anyone ever read Frankel's book. The Meaning, I forget what it's called. You know what I'm talking about? Viktor Frankel's book. What's it called? The Search for Meaning, right? The Viktor Frankl, you know what I'm talking about? He has an incredible description there. He wrote it, mamish, like a few weeks after the Holocaust. He has a very specific description. It's a very good book. It's a small, short book, but it's very. He was a psychologist, and he brings the whole psychology of the Holocaust. But over there, he has a couple descriptions that he was working in the ward over there with, people die, and he describes a few times that when a person died, they would just pull him by his feet, and he said he would see him going down the stairs, boom, boom, boom. His head would go boom, boom, boom down the stairs, and they would just throw him like that, like it was mamish, like, you know what I'm saying, like a doll, like just pull him down. He said, I was just talking to the guy 5 minutes ago, and here he is, boom, 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 like that. You should see how he describes it, very vicious. But they did on purpose in order to avoid what we hold as kavod emet, to give a certain kavod. Anyways, so a ger, a person who was a convert, one time asked Rav Shimon Schwab. It's brought in a sefer on davening. He has a sefer on tefillah under Netilat Yadayim. And he went to Rav Shimon Schwab and he asked him, why is it that by goyim there's no obligation to be buried, and by a Jew there is an obligation to be buried? I'm a little bit worried about saying this 100%, but anyways, we'll just keep going. That why is it like that? Why is there such a mitzvah to bury a Jewish body as opposed to someone who's not Jewish? Okay, and this runs very similar to what I was talking to you about tum'ah. When I talked about spiritual impurity, I said only Jews receive this strong spiritual impurity as opposed to goyim. So he said a beautiful yesod there, that's why I'm speaking it out. He said basically that when you are doing a mitzvah, you purify the body every time you do it. We hold that the body is actually purified every time you do something. And the body was a vessel in order to be able to do something positive, to be able to do the mitzvah, to do something very good. It has a certain kedusha that's formed into the body. And I don't remember if you use this mashal, maybe it's my mashal or his, I can't remember. But it's very similar to when you write divrei Torah on a paper. This paper, before I wrote on this, right, it was an empty piece of paper. After I wrote on this is a piece of divrei Torah. This is a Kaddish Kedoshim. It's a top-notch kedusha here. There's a lot of important things to say over here just from this piece of paper. And that's why I try to make the most of my paper. You see this? This is crazy. I don't live in a sugar about how much I use a paper. But I'm almost like fit in between the lines on the sides and everything. Because I always add and stuff like that. But on Kopadim we see that it's unbelievable. A paper could be, I could have ripped this up in pieces and thrown it in the garbage. Now this is Kodesh Kodashim, it has to be treated properly, and if you're finished with it, then you put it in Gnizah. It's never going to go in Gnizah, it's very chashuv. But if it has to be put it away, you put it in Gnizah. What's Gnizah? What do you do when you put something in Gnizah? You put it in the ground. You bury it. That's the body. The body, when you were born, was born simple, and that's what it is. But Lamaisa, just from a few seconds of being alive, it already has a certain amount of kedusha to it, and therefore it is required to be buried. Okay, it's a certain requirement to be buried because you added a certain kedusha to the body, and therefore the kedusha of the body gets transformed through the actions that you do. You follow? It's not just the neshama that's pure; it's also the body. You understand? And that's why also we hold, which we'll speak about, the resurrection of the dead. And the question that they ask is, why do we need to have a resurrection of the dead? The neshama, he's the big shot over here. He's the one that did all the good stuff. Let him go up to the next world and enjoy himself over there. Why? What's this idea of a resurrection of the dead? And according to most people, that's what's going to be forever. Okay? We hold that Tchiyat HaMeitim is going to last forever, not according to the Rambam. So why? What's the big deal? Why with the body? The answer is Akarat Tov. Your body is the reason why you're alive right now, who's able to give you to do things. When it's over, as they say. It's all over. You're not going to be able to do it. You understand? Your body is the vehicle for you to be able to do something, and therefore it becomes more and more purified every day, and therefore it will come back in the resurrection of the dead, and therefore it also needs to be buried in the ground, because you purified your body. This is the opposite way of Christian thinking. Christian thinks the body is a damned materialistic thing, that when you were born all negative and black and everything was negative, and there's nothing good about it, okay? And there's nothing good about it, and therefore you can get rid of the body, and that's it. There's no real kedusha to the way the body is. The Vilna Gaon says the Shemayim, it's opposite way you would have think. He says the Shemayim, the skies, is for the Goyim, and the ground is for the people, is for the Jews. You would have said the opposite, and the answer is no, because by the Goyim, spirituality and physicality have nothing to do with each other. It's completely divorced, right? As we all know, in Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity, right? You're a holy person, or if they call themselves holy, are not supposed to get married. They're not allowed to get married. Okay? They're not allowed to ki'ilu be with women. With children's a different story, but they're not allowed to officially get married, right? But right? But they're not officially allowed to. So where does that come from? Because they hold that spirituality and physicality are completely divorced. They're only Shemayim. Okay? That's why if a goy brings a korban, brings a sacrifice, you're allowed to take a sacrifice from a goy, but it's only a korban olah. It's a korban olah. Korban olah is a korban which is completely burned on the altar, on the mizbeach, because there's no connection. By us, when we bring a korban, you burn some of it and you eat some of it. A part is burnt and a part is eaten, because we hold you can have a duality. You can live in both worlds, because you can purify your goof, and that's what you're doing. You understand? So that's why there's this idea of burying the body. That's why we bury the body, and that's why we give so much kedusha and kavod to the body, because our actions leave permanence in the body. That's the point I'm trying to give over. It gives over a certain amount of permanence in the body, and that's why we do it. However, and this is just to point the differences out, yeah? When we bury a body, okay, we put it straight into the ground. We don't necessarily show it, because we want it to decompose, receive its kapara, and that's how it becomes part of the ground. And from the ground is a place that grows. From the ground you grow. So we want it, and we watch as they lower the body to remind ourselves that we're all going to the same place, and we watch and we all busy ourselves throwing dirt on the body. Why do we do that? Because we mentioned that we want to see what happens to us soon, okay? That's what's going to happen to all of us, first of all. And second of all, because when you finish burying the body, the nefesh goes up to Shemayim. The nefesh goes up, and we want to help him, and we wait, right? What do we do? A levaya. We escort the body. We escort the body to the grave, and we also bury the body so that his neshama can go upstairs, and that's part of the escorting. We want to escort him to go up to, hopefully, Olam HaBah. It might be a little bit Gehinom before, but he has to still go. Right? We're escorting. That's all part of the escorting process. By the Goyim, they don't do that. A Goyish ceremony, it doesn't come with limit. They have the guy in some fancy coffin with pillows and this or whatever, right? And try to make him all prepped up, dress him up in makeup, and they put all this fancy stuff on to make him look good, right? They put it good looking, right? With the suits. A lot of them have it with a suit and this, and nobody watches when they put the guy into the that's not part of the ceremony. You leave him there when everybody goes home, so then you get the few lowlifes to go and put him down into the body, to put him down into the grave. Nobody watches, nobody's there, because who wants to watch such a thing? I don't want to watch such a thing. The same reason why I keep painting my white hair brown, because I'm afraid of these things. I don't want to look at this. You understand? There's a certain fear, but we want to watch it. We want to see it, and that's part of the escorting, because we know that's there. They hold that when the body's finished, it's finished. So just get rid of it. It's time to go. Why do I have to watch it leave? You understand? It comes from that type of point. You understand? So that's all these ideas that I just want to bring out, the chashivut of learning or connecting to the fact that there is an Olam HaBah. It lasts forever, and it's always there. And you see this very much with Avram Avinu. Such an interesting thing. Avram Avinu lived his whole life as a ger v'toshav ani imechem. He was always here and there in his tent. It's four sides on the tent. He was in the desert here, a little bit here, just like a Bedouin He's never really complacent anywhere. Never found himself here. A little bit in Haran, a little bit in Eretz Yisrael, a little bit downstairs in Mitzrayim, Elimel. Please tell me, what's going on? He never found himself in one place. And Pitom, when his wife was niftar, when his wife passed away, the man spent big bucks to buy a mansion. Right? He made sure to buy her the fanciest, nice me'ara. He tried to find her in Marat HaMachpelah. He found her a place to bury her in the he was so makpid to make sure to purchase it properly. And the reason is because this is what we hold as our proper home. That was the place where he had to do it in order to make sure that's a point because that's what's important. That's what I'm trying to say. That's the nakuda of what is mainly important. Okay? This idea is the idea that we were just trying to bring out about the importance of understanding death, learning about it, understanding what happens when it is. And with this, I was going to start speaking about, again, I'm just going to give intro words, 2 minutes, and we'll stop over here, just so we could break into it in the beginning, okay? From here, we're going to give a little bit of introduction into Gehinom. Now, we will start speaking in detail about what Gehinom kind of looks like, which is a little bit scary, is the truth. But before, we wanted to speak a little bit, just so you know, about understanding about the concept of Gehinom, because there's 2 Gehinoms, believe it or not. Okay, what do I mean there's 2 Gehinoms? The Gemara says like this in Eruvin. It says that Gehinom is oivrei be'emek, people that go through the depths. The emek is the depth. Okay? Because they go, people who are over Ratzon Shel Hashem, people who don't listen to the Ratzon of Hashem, go into Ebek HaBah, which refers to the crying. It's called the chasm, the depth of crying, where there's a lot of crying, Dema'ot, there's a lot of crying. Gam brachat yatem mare, and the people are matzdikim aleim et din. When they get this pain that they go through, they're matzdikim aleim et din, they what? Accept the din, they accept the judgment. They accept the judgment and they say, you're doing good, you're correct, I deserve it, yafe danta, yafe chiyafta, everything that you're doing is 100% right, I 100% deserve it, this deserves to be even more, yafe takanta gehenim l'rashayim, v'ganedim l'tzadikim, this is deserving every little thing. A person admits it. So the Gemara over there asks, Reish Lakish asks, what do you mean? It says, that person, even on Petach Gehinom, doesn't chozer b'tshuva. He doesn't chozer b'tshuva. Over here it sounds like they are chozer b'tshuva. Does a person go back from Gehinom? Does he chozer b'tshuva from Gehinom? Or does he not get back from Gehinom? And the Gemara says, and this is an akuda we have to speak about next time, Bezrat Hashem, there's a difference between Poishe Yisrael and Einam Poishe Yisrael, and Poishe Goyim, and people who are not chozer. He says, Poishe Yisrael, people that were Bnei Israel, that they did Aveirot, what we say b'mikra, here and there, they did things wrong, but they wanted to try to be good and they were working on themselves. Those people, Gehinom is a cleansing process. It's a shower. Okay? And part of the cleansing process is admitting my guilt, knowing I did something wrong. Chozer b'tshuva, this is only temporary, we're going to get out of here one day, and we know that I need it, and this is what's required, etc., etc. But by Poishe Goyim, what's referred to, are people that have no charata, that never felt guilty about it in the first place. Those people suffer and they continue suffering. It actually lasts on somewhat of a permanent basis. Okay, and as we'll see, for those types of people, it's a more of a usuring process, of a painful process, which doesn't necessarily cleanse them for eternity to a certain extent. Hem kala they say eshel gehenim kala vehem einam kalim, right? Like the Gemara, which we'll speak about, brings about Bil'am, or about Yeshu also, that he's still burning in Soa, etc. Over there, it's a different thing. The person for who he was doesn't actually become changed. It doesn't become changed. It just becomes a realization of what I did, but he can never change. You understand? And from here, but as opposed to for us, or for people who are trying their best, but we did things wrong, so you have however many months of Gehinom with a maximum of 12-month sentence in Gehinom. But over there, it comes from a cleansing process, realizing what I did wrong, and the biggest pain and the nakud of the pain, the point of the pain is not necessarily this imaginary type of fire, even though we'll speak about midrashim that speak about a burning sensation, but the point of the most burning sensation that a person feels is the point of guilt, the point of upsetness, the point of it's too late, the point of I can't return, there's nowhere to turn back from. That is the burning cessation of Gehinom. When people do something and you can't get back to them, there's nowhere else to run, there's nowhere else to hide, there's an incredible painful situation with if only I did this, as we all know, such a feeling, like a very typical feeling, let's say nowadays, When women don't end up getting married, or sometimes they got married and get divorced very soon afterwards, and then when they're 40 or 50, they suddenly realize, what did I do? I should have had opportunity. And by them, their biological clock is too late. They never can have kids. They never will have kids. They never have an extension. And especially for a woman, it's something that's an extremely painful experience to know that I will never have a child. And what was I doing? Playing around and having fun and not paying attention to what I could have done. But it's too late, and there's nothing to do. You will never be able to take back that time. The anguish of being in a zman, of not being able to do that. Right? Real estate is a good example of this, I think. Right? In real estate, anyone who deals with real estate, those are the people that are always like, if only I, right? If only, that expression, if only I, is the people who swimming, millions and millions of dollars was on my fingertips, and I could have, right? The amount of anguish it can lead a person to suicide, right? The amount, if only I just had to do, I almost closed the deal, and it didn't happen. The people I think about most, I'll finish, about this type of anguish, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if they had just incredible type of anguish to do, is that the Harry Potter book, she went through 4 publishers that refused her until the 5th publisher took her. Those first 4 publishers, I'm trying to think, like incredible ones. What am I, nuts? Even they had to get, that's Gehinom. I'm saying that's Gehinom. I'm willing to take you now. Thank you very much. Or the fact that this lady was divorced and her husband probably is even needing it more, right? Just stuck with it. Okay, so she's loony, big deal, right? Right? I'm saying it's a certain type of anguish. There's nothing to do. You can't go back. It's a feeling of Gehinom. It's an incredibly painful feeling, tossing and turning, and that type of feeling, which is more of a spiritual anguish. I'm trying to point out. It's not a burning feel like you're on a barbecue. Okay, it's not exactly that. Right? It's a certain type of thing that a person has an anguish that you can only do it as much as you have, like a pot of earthenware pot. When you have a pottery, as long as it's on the fire and it's turning, you could still change it here. But once you take it off, and derech chazara anymore. There's no way of going back, and it's a certain painful thing. And I'll end with one more mashal, and this will finish. We'll continue next time. I'll pick it up on this mashal. But there's a story that they say about they were putting up a new shul, and as you all know, especially on Rabbi Genish, a shul is usually a caravan, right? That's the minhag, to make it out of a caravan. And the manof was coming, right? The truck was coming and it was placing the thing. And they were trying to move, well, a little bit here, and they were moving it here. They were moving, a little bit here, a little bit here. Then they put it, and boom, and then it landed on the ground. And then they, Baruch Hashem, it's all there, and this and that, everyone's fine. Truck goes home, and this, they walk in the shul, they're all excited for the thing, and they noticed that the caravan was put backwards. It was put backwards. The Aron Kodesh was this way, and now it was this way, and Ezra Nashim is in the wrong place, and there's oh my gosh, we can't do that, you understand, but it doesn't work like that. You have to turn around. What do you mean turn around? This is the lesson. While it was in the air, I could have changed anything. When it was in the air, there was turning back and forth. There's alterations that could have been done. But Achshav, it's too late. But now there's nowhere to go, nowhere to run. Once it's on the floor, stick with it, buddy. Figure out, make amendments. But you're not going to be able to do anything about it. You understand? Once it's on the ground, it's too late. That's how it is. Once you're upstairs, it's too late, and it's such a painful business. If I only did this a little bit more tzitzis, if I were a few more minutes, or if I didn't just make that, if I didn't miss that Kriyat Shema, or if I just, what was I so stupid? So many people were telling me, if I speak to different people down here, so many people were telling me how important Shabbat is and to keep it to this, and here I am, and I messed up, and okay, I could have done it. It wasn't such a big deal. It's actually enjoyable. Why did I do it? You understand? All that charata. This goes, as they say in the Bach, it's an incredibly type of painful feeling. It's a spiritual pain. It's not a physical pain, and that's what happens with this idea of Gehinnom. Okay, that's the Gehinnom that we're going to refer to. I said we're going to speak about 2 different types of Gehinnom, B'ezrat Hashem, and then we'll get into the details, maybe the uncomfortable details of what Gehinnom looks like, B'ezrat Hashem.